Boeing has been going through tough times in recent years. Several 737 MAX crashes, groundings due to COVID-19, parts of planes falling off in flight, high-profile scandals, accusations of concealing information, worker strikes. All of this has had a negative impact on the reputation of the airspace giant. But today, we will talk about another project, also not the most pleasant for Boeing, the Starliner spacecraft. On September 7, 2024, the Starliner capsule entered the atmosphere and landed safely at the White Sands test site. But there were no people inside. NASA astronauts Butch, Wilmore and Sunita Williams, who flew to the ISS aboard the Starliner, remained on the station. Their initially 8-day space mission will stretch to 8 months. They will return to Earth only in February 2025 on a completely different ship. Why did that happen? Can Starliner be called a cursed ship, and does it have a future? Let's figure it out. But first, let's give a little context about where this program came from. Year 2003. Returning to Earth, the shuttle Columbia disintegrated in the atmosphere. 7 astronauts on board died. NASA found the cause of the accident and developed measures to prevent it from happening again. A few years later, the shuttles began flying into space again, but everyone already understood that their days were numbered. The shuttles were supposed to be replaced by the Constellation program, which can be called an attempt to repeat Apollo. It involved creating a line of new rockets and the Orion capsule ship, one modification of which was intended to deliver people to the ISS and the other for interplanetary missions and flights to the moon. On paper, everything looked promising, but reality made adjustment. The cost of Constellation was estimated at a colossal $230 billion. No one was in a hurry to allocate such money for space. Due to a lack of funding and technical problems, the Constellation implementation schedule began to shift. And then, the economic crisis of 2008 happened, and the American government had no time for space. After coming to power, the Barack Obama administration conducted an audit of Constellation. It turned out that the program was not only behind schedule, but had already managed to go beyond its rather large budget. Because of this, as well as the lack of clear goals for Constellation, the program was closed in the early 2010. The decision caused a storm in the aerospace industry. Many large companies, already rubbing their hands in anticipation of multi-billion-dollar contracts, found themselves out of work. Many NASA employees and space enthusiasts were also dissatisfied. Shuttle operations were supposed to cease by mid-2011. But what next? How does America intend to remain a space power if it cannot send people into space? To calm the critics, the US government announced that it was not closing the Orion project, but only the modification for deep space flights remained. It was not suitable for delivering astronauts to the ISS. NASA entered into an agreement with Roscosmos, and for several years astronauts flew into orbit on Soyuz rockets. But it was obvious that this was a temporary measure. Considerations of prestige, pressure from the public and industry demanded that the United States again acquire its own spacecraft. Soon, NASA announced a new program, the Commercial Crew Program, CCP. The agency decided to commercialize space flights and entrust private companies with delivering people to the ISS. Before this, NASA itself owned and operated the ships. Now, it simply became the customer of the flight, and the ship remains the property of the company that built it. To say that NASA's choice surprised the experts is to say nothing. At that time, the same SpaceX had carried out only 5 launches of the Falcon 1 rocket, and the first 3 were unsuccessful. If the 4th flight had also ended in an accident, the company would have gone bankrupt at the end of 2008. The history of cosmonautics would have taken a different path, and now NASA's decision would probably be considered a mistake. But the agency had no other options but to take a risk. It could not afford to simultaneously finance Orion and build a new ship for flights to the ISS. But a private company, free from bureaucratic restrictions, would have done it for less. At least that was the calculation. The contenders among the companies were selected in a competition. By the finals, the reverse trio left: SpaceX with Crew Dragon spacecraft project, Boeing with the CST-100 Starliner spacecraft, and Sierra Nevada with the Dream Chaser spaceplane. Boeing, with its vast experience in aerospace engineering, was considered the clear favorite. Many thought that it would be easier to give the entire contract to Boeing than to split it up and give some of the flights to another company, whose success few believed in. And yet, common sense prevailed. Despite pressure from lobbyists, NASA decided not to put all eggs in one basket and chose two winners, Boeing and SpaceX. According to the terms of the contract, the companies had to build a manned spacecraft, provide it with a means of launching it into orbit, test it, and after recognizing the apparatus as safe, carry out up to 6 missions to deliver crews to the ISS. For this, they were supposed to receive respectively $4.2 and $2.6 billion. Yes, Boeing received much more than SpaceX for solving the same problem. This was explained by the reliability of its application, while SpaceX was considered a dark horse. Sierra Nevada, with its elegant Dream Chaser, was the loser. The company tried to challenge the results of the competition, but nothing came of it. Its application was largely undermined by the still fresh memories of the loss of Columbia and prejudice against spaceplanes. But we must give credit to the authors of the project. They did not give up and continued development. Next year, the cargo version of the Dream Chaser should make its first flight to the ISS. Commercial flights under the CCP program were supposed to begin at the end of 2017, but it soon became clear that the deadline would not be met. Creating a spacecraft is not an easy task. Both Boeing and SpaceX faced a lot of problems. It was only in 2019 that both companies seemed to be in the home stretch. However, SpaceX unexpectedly pulled ahead and in March 2019 carried out a successful orbital test of Crew Dragon. But just a month later, the ship exploded during a test. Boeing had a chance to catch up with the leader. In December 2019, the unmanned Starliner went into space for the first time. But instead of triumph, it turned out to be a fail. Due to a software error, after the ship separated from the rocket, there was a failure in the calculation of the flight time. The ship used up too much fuel and they had to abandon the docking with the ISS, which led to the failure of a number of tests. In addition, engineers discovered another software problem that could have caused the service module to collide with the crew capsule after separation and damage its heat shield. Ironically, if not for the first failure, this error would not have been found and the ship could have been lost. As a result, instead of 8 days in space, the ship spent only 2. And although the Starliner capsule landed safely, everyone realized that another unmanned test flight was needed. Meanwhile, SpaceX solved the problem with Crew Dragon. In May 2020, the ship went into space with people for the first time. David defeated Goliath in the space race. Amid the triumph of its competitor, Boeing slowed down. The next attempt to send Starliner into space took place only in August 2021. But that time it did not even get to launch. The flight was disrupted due to an oxidizer leak that damaged the valves that were responsible for supplying fuel. The problem was so serious that engineers had to completely replace the Starliner service module, spending a lot of time. Because of all this, the next Starliner flight took place only in May 2022. The ship reached the ISS, also not without problems with the engines. Based on the results of the mission, NASA gave the green light for the first flight with astronauts. But they had to wait for it for 2 whole years. The launch date was constantly pushed back for various reasons. Either problems with the parachutes were discovered during tests, or the tape used to wrap the wires turned out to be highly flammable. On June 5, 2024, Starliner finally launched into space with humans, NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sunita Williams. The mission plan called for them to spend 8 days aboard the ISS before returning to Earth. But things went wrong. During Starliner's docking with the ISS, the ship's computer shut down 5 of the 28 maneuvering thrusters due to reduced performance. Flight controllers were able to restore 4 of them, allowing the docking to be completed. At first, the problem didn't seem too serious. NASA and Boeing remained optimistic. Short test runs of Starliner thrusters were conducted, the results of which were called encouraging. But time passed, and Starliner didn't fly anywhere. The ship's return was postponed until the end of June, then July. In addition, NASA rarely gave new information about Starliner, which gave rise to a wave of rumors and speculation. At the same time, engineers at the ground testing site tried to reproduce situation with a decrease in engine performance, and tests showed that heating the engines could lead to squeezing out the Teflon seal and restrict the fuel flow. At the same time, specialists still did not fully understand the mechanism of the malfunction and could not assess the degree of its danger to the crew. NASA faced a difficult choice. It was possible to return the astronauts to Earth on board the Starliner, but there was a possibility, albeit a small one, that the failure of several engines would start a chain reaction and the ship would lose orientation upon entering the atmosphere. Boeing did not share this position. They claimed that the ship was safe for return to Earth and cited their computer model as proof. NASA was not convinced. In the end, caution won out. No one wanted a repeat of Columbia. In the past, astronauts have died due to a combination of unlikely circumstances. At a press conference on August 24, NASA announced that the Starliner would return to Earth without a crew. Symbolically, Boeing representatives were not present at that conference. On the night from 6th to 7th of September, the empty Starliner separated from the ISS and entered Earth's atmosphere 7 hours later. The descent was not without its hiccups, but overall the return to Earth went as planned. The capsule made a soft landing at the White Sands test site. It will later be transported to the Kennedy Space Center for inspection. A few words about crew. They will have to wait. Wilmore and Williams will return to Earth as part of the Crew 9 mission on the Crew Dragon spacecraft. It hardly needs to be explained what a blow to Boeing's reputation it was that astronauts were rescued from space captivity by their competitors. To make room for Wilmore and Williams, NASA had to reduce the Crew 9 crew from 4 to 2 people. The ship is scheduled to launch on September 28, and it will return to Earth in February 2025. So Wilmore and Williams' 8-day flight will stretch to 8 months. Thanks to this casting, the astronauts will be able to put together a rare combo. They have already flown on 3 different spacecraft, Shuttles, Soyuz and Starliner, and now Crew Dragon will be added to them. It's easy to see why Starliner is sometimes called the cursed ship. You wouldn't wish so many failures on your worst enemy. But does the ship have a future? Or is it destined for the dustbin of history? It's a tough question. Given all of Boeing's problems that we talked about at the beginning of this video, the Starliner's story has now been added to them, revealing many of the company problems, from poor HR policies to overconfidence and a desire to win not with a better product, but with lobbyists. There have been persistent rumors online that the company is going to shut down the project. The C in the CCP program abbreviation stands for commercial, and Starliner has certainly not made any money. The project's losses are estimated at $1.6 billion, and this is clearly not the final figure. So Boeing executives are clearly tempted to shut down the project. However, for now the company denies the rumors and plans to continue working on Starliner. But even if that's the case, engineers will have to make changes to the ship service module, which will obviously take a lot of time and money. Then, most likely they will have to conduct a new test of the ship. And only if it goes well, Starliner will be able to begin missions to the ISS. At the same time, NASA plans to leave the ISS at the beginning of the next decade. Even if Boeing has learned its lesson, and all the tests go smoothly, it's not a fact that the company will even have time to complete its 6 flights. Of course, if NASA's strategy works, the ISS will be replaced by commercial orbital stations in the future, and someone will need to supply them and deliver people to them. But Starliner, whose reputation is already damaged, will have a hard time breaking into this market, especially with a powerful competitor in the form of Crew Dragon, which has been carrying people to the ISS for 4 years and is used in solo private missions. Not only Boeing's reputation has suffered, NASA has also received its share of criticism. During the Starliner saga, the organization got away with general words, almost without providing details about what was happening to the ship. This provoked a wave of rumors, inside of information from anonymous sources, accusation of concealing information, and conspiracy theories. The organization's PR managers clearly needs to undergo a retraining course for such situations. But even if Starliner never flies again, its fiasco could open a window of opportunity for other companies. For example, the same Sierra with its Dream Chaser. 10 years ago, they were denied the dream of sending people into space. But if Starliner goes out of business, who knows? We may yet see the return of manned spaceplanes. And if you want to see a video about Dream Chaser or other space program, write about it in comments. We would also be grateful if you like this video and share it with someone who might also be interested in this topic. Bye.